so much, Dr. Shah. I'm really delighted and honored to be here, and I take my cue from Prakash Bhai and would like to thank not only Mr. Hari Kiran Vadlamani, but the entire Indic book club family, I should call it. It's growing. For this opportunity. In fact, this is the first of a series of talks I'm supposed to be giving on this tour. There's one tomorrow on Gandhi's education philosophy, and then I, so to speak, hop across the big pond and end up in a rather, should I say, redneck part of the United States. And in India, we saw echoes of such movements from the 70s with the Dalit Panther movement, and subsequently the struggles of several disenfranchised groups for greater power within the system, including Adivasis. You might even see the Maoist agitation, which is an ongoing one and supposedly a very serious threat to the Indian state as well as civil society as a part of this broader self-assertion. Now, no doubt identity politics has been a very powerful tool for the empowerment of the oppressed, but it has also resulted, especially in India, in great social divisiveness and also hatred and violence of various kinds. I wanted to talk a little bit about higher education, since I'm in higher education, and what identity politics has done to our delivery of excellence in especially humanities and social sciences. And then I wanted to also bring in the UP elections, which are seen as as a great watershed in India. Very recent, where the BJP won convincingly, and Yogi Adityanath is now the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. Out of 100, so 50 go in the, roughly 50 go to the general, 22.5% go to OBC, and then another 22.5, 15 plus 7.5 go to scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. So, and then this is actually carried out for faculty recruitments, for promotions, even for housing. Except in housing, the more underprivileged you are, the greater your advantage. And in addition to this, in JNU, we have something called backward points. There are percentiles and quartiles given. Suppose you come from Bastar, which is the place of the great Maoist surge that you read about, then you're supposed to get backward points for being from that area. But there are many such places where you can get backward points. And in addition, if you are a woman, then you get another 5 backward points. With the result that in my discipline, about 95% of our students are women. So out of 30, we have only 1 or 2 boys. So at least scrap this extra quota for women for my discipline, and they refuse. And today, JNU very proudly tells everyone that we have more women students. We have 55% women students to 45% male students. So that makes us very, very obviously, proactive in gender justice. But now, the result of all this political correctness is that our students are getting increasingly incompetent. The ecosystem promotes different forms of political mobilization for which you get rewarded academically as well, which again seems to be a very dangerous correlation. So that what's happened to higher education in India is that there is a dumbing down, and the best of our students get exported. They go abroad, where they work very hard indeed, because there's no free lunch there, And in JNU, hostels per month, the cost is like, it's less than £1 to live in JNU. So many students stay for 10 years, living, practically for free. They do jobs, and they never leave the campus. So it's the land of lotus eaters to some extent. And then if I talk about this, of course, I'm going to become even more unpopular. But JNU is not the only place. Most of our universities in India are places where you have this kind of political agitation and identity politics going on most of the time, and the degrees that we give out and the teachers we are training, we are a PhD factory in a sense, JNU. And these people go and teach everywhere else, and then they replicate, they reproduce this form of political correctness or identity politics for real academics. What's really going on in higher education is that our universities are going down the tube because most of the times, especially humanities and social sciences, all that people do is do identity politics, political correctness. They don't learn very much. And so the universities go down, and then there's no admission because there are very few seats available for the general quota. So then there is the central universities, which have the best teachers and the best facilities even now and the best reputations. They become dens of parasitism, and because the fees have been frozen for years, and if you increase the fee by say £3 or £5, then there's a huge agitation. That's the problem with, in a sense, identity politics even in India, that people who are its proponents they're not self-critical, they don't question themselves. And this includes all kinds of agitators, whether these are Dalit agitators, OBC agitators, people fighting for the LGBT rights, and I would call them 2.5 wave feminists in India, because they're not sure whether they're in third wave or the second wave yet. They're somewhere in between. Now, what's happened is a Hindu consolidation, which some people may call identity politics of another kind. All the left liberals and secularists call it that, which they consider more dangerous than the other kind. But I think that what's happened in UP is the idea that it's not as if, the privileges and the pelf of power just shift from one group to the other. But the pie can be enlarged, and that everyone can get their slice. So for me, this is a market shift, because the earlier model was invested in backwardness and scarcity. So the point is, you grab power so that your lot can get something when they are in power. But now that's not the idea. The idea is that there are possibilities of growth where different groups can be benefited. I mean, not just one group. What has now happened is that the, so to speak, Hindu genie has been released from the bottle, and it's not going to go back in quite the same way.
I have a question related to what you talked about in terms of what you referred to as Hindu consolidation.
Yes.
You suggest here that different groups can be benefited, and you associate that with the kind of rise of the recent politics in India. I found that surprising, because if we look at what's happened since, for example, the Modi government came to power, it seems to be fairly well established that you've actually seen a rise in violence against minorities and against Dalits. You don't see very much restraint, for example, in the activities of the Gorakshas, the cow vigilante groups and so on, which is very closely linked into the network of organizations which Modi is associated with. So, I find this, very, very contradictory when you say that the consolidation of Hinduism is somehow distinct from identity politics, which it seems to be a very virulent, in fact, form of identity politics, and one which, of course, has very deep roots in the colonial period. I'd like you to respond to that.
I don't think we're going to agree on this. I think these are topics which, people come with preset opinions on these issues, I feel, because I've been sort of observing these kinds of debates endlessly now, and two sides never agree because they've already concluded. Now, I could ask you, what evidence do you have that violence against minorities is going up, for example?
There's a great deal of evidence.
there's very little. For example, in Gujarat, that's what I'm saying. We're endlessly fighting this. See, Gujarat, exactly in the time, in the duration of the BJP rule, you'll find that there's not almost a single. Exactly after that. I mean, I agree. I mean, that's well documented. But what I'm trying to say is that I'll reply to your question in a different way. See, what's really happened is there is secularism in India has also been a form of identity politics. And there's a displacement of the secular elite. And see, they're very illiberal, they're bad losers. So when they lose, they try to vitiate the whole atmosphere. And unfortunately, so what I'm trying to say is that I turned into a Hindu activist in a very strange way, because what I found is that I was always taught in my school that you fight, let's say on the playground, and then you shake hands, whoever wins. But this side, they when somebody wins whom they don't agree with, they say it's so undemocratic. When people vote you to power, you're supposed to say they won fair and square, look at the margins, etc. No, they'll say no, the fascists are taking over, democracy is under threat.
Well, what about what's just happened in Rajasthan with the killings by Gauraksha?
One man was killed, but many people...
Oh, so that's not a problem?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying that it's these things that get really blown out of proportion. I mean, suppose I were to tell you the Prime Minister himself said cow vigilantes are not to be encouraged. How about that?
I know that. I'm aware of the very belated statement which he made about
See, it doesn't satisfy you. See,
but he also made speeches during his election campaign saying there's a pink revolution, this whole idea that there was this big problem of cow slaughter. You can trace it back to his election campaign speeches.
No, but perhaps there was, and nobody wanted... I mean, there's a big problem.
There was a problem.
There's illegal slaughterhouses, I can tell you.
Can we have a meeting, please, rather than...
Yes, next one.
I have a question. It's basically you want you to confirm something that during your discourse you mentioned regarding reservation in higher education authorities and universities. Did I hear you correct when you said that these higher education authorities, universities have become dens of parasites? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
Okay. A second.
You know, the annihilation of caste, which was the name of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's book, is something that most people are not interested in. All they want is a different arrangement of caste. They don't want annihilation. You see, and this is the danger that India is going through, that because of these incorrect or confused notions and thinking, like suppose you want to create excellence in any field. Let's say you want to produce, let's say tennis champions. Are you going to have a special quota? Like you get a Dalit tennis champion, an OBC tennis champion. So we just do tokenism at higher education. And in the end, we are producing nincompoops. And if these are going to go and lead and teach, with the result that people don't appreciate what they get. And they spend most of their time agitating, and it never stops. The agitations never stop. So when you get something, then you want something more. And as I said, they don't want to leave the campus. They continue to stay there for 7 years, 10 years, and some of them want to get jobs there. I think of caste also as identity and citizenship, for salt. And you can't annihilate these things, So, see, identity has many components, See, one is ontological, it's astitva. See, one is asmita. It's meri pehchan kya hai? What is who am I? Who are my parents? What have I inherited? So that is also not, in my opinion, good to annihilate.
In 2015, made a speech saying that Muslim women, even dead Muslim women, should be raped, right? And this actually happened in UP. A Muslim woman recently buried was dug out of her grave and gang raped. So how would one, all of these incidents never drew any condemnation from anybody in the ruling party. Not only that, Yogi Adityanath was then made chief minister. So how does this work when we talk about drawing people together and unity? And you say that he didn't say it, he was just sitting there.
Yes.
Now I want to know,
Yes.
did anybody in the BJP, including he himself, make a statement condemning it?
Well, I don't know in the sense that as far as I know, maybe some people did.
No.
But I don't
Did Modi
the
condemn
sense.
it?
No, see, Modi can't be bullied into condemning all kinds
Do you
of
not
things.
think
I'm
it's an
sorry.
atrocious-
If you look at the discourses surrounding identity politics, even in the West, until the recent upsurge of the dominant groups, whether it's Donald Trump or, different such leaders who are seen as right-wing and white majoritarian and so forth, by and large, in academics and in other circles, identity politics was identified by and large with marginal groups and their empowerment. So what we're talking about, this right-wing majoritarian, is a rather new phenomenon, unless you go back to the Nazis and other things. Okay, so this is the broad perspective. Now in India, we have a certain version of that in the majority, like the Hindus are the majority, being consolidated, under the umbrella of Hindutva and BJP. So there is something similar that's also going on in India. But it's not based, as I was saying, on caste or on race or on other things, but it's based on this idea of being Hindu.